So, let me tell you a story. You see this game back here? This is called Pocket Rumble. And let me tell you, I was like fucking stoked for this game because I thought that this would finally be the game to get me into like traditional 2D fighting games. See, I come from Smash Bros. The thing that frustrates me about Smash is that it just constantly hinders itself due to making it think that it's a party game first before a fighting game. So that's why you got shit like tripping and balance that just makes no goddamn sense. Among like other things that I do not have time to go over today. But I still loved it, like, even in spite of its flaws. So if I can have like this much fun like playing a game that's not even supposed to be taken competitively, like imagine like how fun it would be to have a game that was built from the ground up to be competitive. I, along with so many others, have tried so many times and failed to get into these games because I thought the main problem was these games were just like too fucking hard from a mechanical standpoint. When people say that fighting games are like too hard, like they usually mean like when people say that fighting games are like too hard, they usually mean they're mechanically too hard. Like you gotta like do like quarter circles, you gotta memorize frame data and like combos, like fucking slamming your joystick to side in wonky directions just to throw a fireball, as well as an over-reliance of concepts like frame links, buffering, canceling specials. Like keep in mind, like all this was originally the result of like a bunch of glitches and exploits in the original Street Fighter 2. So of course, none of this makes any goddamn sense or intuitive in a way to like regular people. I'm going to call them glitches because if you insist on calling wave dashing a glitch, then what the fuck do you call this, you dumb fuck? So ever since like then, like fighting games have been designed around like these obtuse concepts. So if you're a new player who has absolutely no foundation in these techniques, then there's a lot of grinding you gotta do just to prevent yourself from getting bodied over and over again. Or hell, to even like get a hit in the first place. And at that point, when you have to do that much grinding, that much practice before you can even get to the fun part of the game, it doesn't feel like you're playing a video game anymore. It feels like you're doing homework. And that's the last thing anyone wants to do in their spare time. But lately we're starting to see a trend in fighting games that are trying to like reduce this execution barrier. You got, in Street Fighter 5, they increased the timing window of certain texts to make them easier and more consistent to pull off, hence the whole like 8-frame link meme. Not 8 link, the 8-frame meme. Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite and Dragon Ball Fighter Z added auto combos so players don't have to waste their time like memorizing like combos just to do basic damage. And Rising Thunder removed like quarter circles and all that stuff entirely to make specials a lot more easier to execute. And I tried all these games along with like many others and they just couldn't hook me in. And I thought it was because the execution level was still too high. Why are these games still insist on using these janky motions to do special attacks in the first place? It just felt like these games refused to let go of these archaic concepts, relics from an age when arbitrary difficulty was the thing that made those companies money back then. It's like today how like companies make their money through loot boxes or microtransactions or like power timers to make you pay for tokens to make you play longer in mobile games like that. Like, you think this shit is new, guys? Like, nah. Game company has been fucking with us since the 90s. It's like, this shit's not new. It's just taking a new form. That was like the whole reason why I was so excited for Pocket Rumble to begin with, because like, it advertised that this was supposed to be a beginner-friendly fighting game. Everything has been streamlined to the most basic elements to make it as easy and intuitive as possible for newcomers. So finally, there wouldn't be anything getting in the way. Like, no excuses, it would just be me and the opponent. Like, no learning curve, no bullshit, no nothing. So I downloaded the game day one, using all of their eShop credit that I've been saving up for. And I played it for 2 days, offline exclusively, like trying out all the characters. And after 2 days of like training, I hop in online. And every single time this happens, And every single time, I have to yell like, what the fuck am I supposed to do? And I know some of you like wise asses out there are gonna say like, just don't get yourself trapped in the corner, God. Bitch, you don't think I don't know that? Do you think I asked to be punched into the corner repeatedly? Huh, you don't think I don't understand that? Alright. So frustrated after only 30 minutes of playing this game, I log off, I go online, look up at Discord to try to figure out like, what the hell am I supposed to do? And every time I did, like, I basically got this answer, and I'm like, what the fuck is a DP? And another guy said like, this, one heavy. And I'm like, what the hell does that even mean? So it turns out that DP means Dragon Punch, which is that ball slinging motion that I keep bragging about earlier, but because that motion isn't in the game, like, it's kind of like Smash Bros, where you have to like press a direction and then an attack button to do specials, referring to a special move that's diagonal back down plus heavy attack. And the guy posted an image of a chart that's the direction of an arcade stick to explain why number 1 was involved, and I was like, okay, that's like pretty neat to know. I learned something new today. But guess what? That was 3 steps just to like explain one thing, and I still don't understand how that thing is supposed to help me or why. And this was the moment that made me realize, like, it was not the execution that made fighting games hard. Like, it's certainly a barrier of difficulty, but that's not even the worst one. No, the real reason why fighting games are hard is that they're absolutely ass at teaching you how to even play. The tutorials for these games are always terrible. All they do is tell you what each button does, and the rest is just a series of button prompts to command you what to do without any explanation as to why you gotta do it, why it's important, or provide you an opportunity to apply it in a practical situation, like every other fucking video game genre ever does. And every good game, for that matter. I don't want to rag. I don't like ragging on Pocket Rumble this entire time because, like, it's a $10 indie game, alright? It was made by only 2 guys. So, of course, I'm not going to expect over the moon for this game, but it highlights everything wrong with this genre and, like, what these companies do with these games. So, there's, like, a trial mode, basically, like, mini tutorials. They basically ask you to do specific things, and one of them, there's a challenge asking me to do a buffer by inputting left, then diagonal light special while doing that special. First of all, what? Second, I'm doing exactly what it's saying, or at least I think I am. The wording is so vague, and nothing is still working. And why does it even matter? What's a buffer and what's the point of doing one? I had to put the game down and look that shit up. And even then I was still confused as to why it was useful, but whatever. I went back to the game, I did what the article said, and it still wasn't working! This game wasn't explaining to me what I was doing wrong and why. And again, like, other games have already done this with, like, there could have been, like, an indicator showing me exactly what the timing is supposed to be. You know, almost make the practice session like a minigame almost, so that it would resemble being fun or something. Ain't that a fun concept? The fact that Pocket Rumble, a game that advertises itself as a beginner-friendly fighting game, still insists on clinging onto like these archaic concepts like buffering and is designed around that, I think it shows like there's a very disturbing like disconnect between FGC players and developers and what they believe beginner friendliness actually is. I think like FGC players have straight up forgotten what it's like to be a noob. Like, they've been playing these games for 20 years. Their brains are hardwired at this point to to understand these games this way, so they just can't comprehend what it's like for someone from the outset to experience these games for the very first time. This game provides absolutely no tools to understand key concepts like how to properly defend yourself against skullfuck up the eye socket in the corner. There's no option in practice mode to make the AI go balls out on you, so you can't take your time and figure out what your options are. And here's the bonus fact. Turns out that DP suggestion I got earlier doesn't even apply to all the characters, including my main, June. You'd think something important like that would be in the trials sections, which are supposed to teach you like the individual quirks of every single character, but they don't at all. This game has the foundation to better teach the player base through these small digestible challenges, but still doesn't. This game has been in development for over 4 years and was pushed back an entire year without notice or reason or communication with its fans. What the hell were they doing that entire time with a game that has only 8 characters? And meanwhile, there's absolutely no excuse as to why a AAA, big budget studio can't do something simple like that for their titles. Capcom can't be fucking spared to teach their players how to play the fucking game. However, there are 2 companies that have been doing that for the longest time, and they're called Nintendo and NetherRealm Studios. And guess what? Their games are the best selling in the business! These games are filled to the brim with side activities and extra content that may not be necessarily be teaching you the intricacies of the game, but they're at least providing plenty of opportunity to practice the game in a way that's engaging and fun and not a damn grind. But for everyone else, like, the only way to figure this shit out for yourself is to get bodied over and over and over again. And guess what? That's not fucking fun! Like, you guys want to know why the retention rates for fighting games are some of the worst in gaming? It's because players aren't having fun, because they're constantly losing, because they don't understand why they're losing, because the game doesn't tell them. The argument I'm always getting in response is that, like, fighting games are just hard, like, normies just can't handle, like, knowing that they have lost, and it's like, okay, you smug fucks. Think about first-person shooters, the most popular genre among regular gamers. These companies dump stupid amounts of money into these games with online multiplayer as the main draw every time, and they make an equally stupid amount of money back, even when most of the people playing it are objectively garbage. Look at Mario Kart, a game where the average player ain't gonna be getting pedestal finishes unless they pray to the Lord and Savior Art and Jesus. Yet it's consistently the best-selling racing franchise of all time, and always has people of all skill levels playing it. And people are going to say, like, that's because, like, well, in those games, like, they can blame it on other factors like bad teammates or bad RNG and bad luck, and yeah, you're probably right. I'm not even going to argue against that. But then consider the mainstream success of games like Dark Souls and Cuphead. Games that aren't only hard, but their difficulty is the selling point of the game. And these are single-player games, so players don't have an excuse. They can't blame it on outside factors. And yet these are still, like, mainstream successes. And there's plenty of other games out there that still have the success despite being difficult. Like, look at God of War, the latest version. It's not that people can't handle losing. It's the differences in those games, they understand exactly why they're losing. Like, these games constantly present puzzles, essentially. Like, every obstacle is a puzzle in a sense. Part of the fun of these games is, like, understanding how to, like, solve that puzzle, so when they do overcome it, it makes it feel, like, so satisfying. And in fighting games, that's what every opponent is. They're basically like a unique puzzle every single time that's using a specific set of pieces in their characters. But the problem is that, like, with fighting games, players are given a puzzle to solve, but they're not even aware of all the pieces given to them. It's 11:30 at night. I just got back from a long day of work, and I just wanted to sit back and play a fun video game. When I have to stop playing that video game to do research online because I don't know what I'm doing, that's bad fucking design. You want to keep these arbitrary mechanics, like, fine. Like, I'm not here to invalidate people's fun, okay? These games have been around for so long, so there's clearly an audience that likes them. And you're not a lesser being for liking those mechanics, but for everybody else, like, if you're going to insist on keeping them, then you should at least give newer players the tools to understand what they're doing. Games have been doing this for years. Competitive games have been doing this for years as well. And yes, even $10 indie games have been doing this. Fighting games don't have to be hard. But the FGC community, that's actually kind of redundant, the fighting game community insists on keeping them hard for no good reason. I brought up all of this to the people in that Pocket Rumble Discord, and the response every time pretty much boiled down to like, I don't know, fighting games aren't supposed to be hard. They have been hard for years, like, them's the breaks, son. I'm sorry, but that's a fucking bullshit attitude to have, alright? Take this baby, okay? Imagine you had this baby, and it just figured out how to walk. Maybe he can even run on a good day. Getting this shit out of here. Are you really going to take that baby and throw it into the deep end of a pool? No, obviously you're not going to, but that's the exact same attitude that FGC players have towards new players. They expect them to have to learn through an unfair, unfun, and ineffective learning environment by getting their ass beaten over and over again. They're so afraid of making these games accessible because they think that's going to like deter people away from what makes these games fun. But guess what? You're already doing that, keeping the games they are right now. And hold on, I know there's gonna be some motherfuckers out there that say like, well, you know what, that's just how it was in the arcades, like that's how we did it back in our day, so that's how it should be done now. My niggas, is this 1988? Huh? Is this 1998? Yo, this ain't even 2008, okay? This is 2018! That was how it was done in the arcades. Like, are you saying you want to go back to the 90s? Is that what you're saying? Cause you don't! You were saying you want to give up the iPhone, the very thing I'm using to record this video, and make phone calls, and check the internet, and watch porn, and you want to go back to fucking Walkmans? You want to go back to brick phones? That's how it was in the 90s, so I might as well go back to that, huh? That sounds like a fucking good idea. Hey, you remember this? You wanna know what this is? For those of you who weren't even born, who weren't even fetuses when these were around, this is called a VHS tape. Back then, in the 90s, when you wanted to watch a movie, you had to walk your ass all the way over to Blockbuster, pay $8 per pop, and then, when you wanted to watch a new movie, you had to go back to the store, return it, and do the whole process all over again. But now, in 2018, you can just pop on Netflix for only $8 a month and have access to thousands of movies at any single time. And are you saying you want to go back to this? You want to go back to this? No! We have the technology! Shut the fuck up! You don't realize how drunk you are until you try to get up and walk around. As it stands right now, Seth Killian's Fantasy Strike is the last bastion of hope for having an accessible and yet still deeply satisfying 2D fighting game experience. If he fails, then the FGC has to get off the old man rocking chairs and reconsider their views and attitudes if they still wish to keep expanding their community. If they refuse, which, you know what, you want to keep the games the way they are, like, I ain't judging you on that, okay? Again, I'm not here to invalidate anything. I'm just a fucking salty drunk who's just who wants to love these games, okay? That's the thing that makes me so mad. I want to love these games so badly, but it just feels like it doesn't want... It feels like it's constantly putting up barriers for no good reason, alright? And if you can't do that, or if you won't do that, then you're just gonna have to, in order to sustain your community, you're gonna have to really work hard to sustain, like, your niche fan base, and Again, I want to reiterate, nothing wrong with that. You just better be content with the fact that your game beaten out in viewerships, in players, and by sales by a fucking party game. The number of people who like to play these games is actually a very small amount. So there's only so far you can go without relying on like viewerships, which you can do it that way. You can at least make your games like visually exciting. That's what makes Dragon Ball FighterZ like so appealing. Like, not a lot of people can play it, but a lot of people watch it at least, so that's fine. Like, a lot of people can't play sports, but people still dig it, so that's totally valid. But if you want to increase your player base, which is what really keeps games going for years and years, then you have to like be more willing to accept new blood, and the only way to do that is to make the games a lot more accessible.